I've recorded every single Mythic Plus key that I've attempted in Season 3, and in this series I'm going to cover the highs and lows of each dungeon on my way to pugging to the 0.1% title. In today's episode, we're going to kick things off with a 25 Throne of the Tides. Now, if you guys can't already tell within that first sentence, I am a little bit under the weather today, but we're getting it done anyway. So, we finally managed to get our hands on a playthrough profile. I've finally been converted. I was still toying with what kind of playthrough profile I was using at the moment. I've also included some weak auras that count down the cooldowns on the trash in Mythic Plus, so that is really helpful, and I'm definitely used to that now. Wasn't comfortable with it at all at this point, so I really struggled to dodge the acid barrage on this Ravager mob near the start of Throne. I mean, it's pretty hard to dodge anyway, but now that I have a cooldown for it, I can see when I need to start pre-moving. We ended up playing the dogs really badly here. The DH died pretty much off the rip. He didn't have his blur up for this pack here, so he died, which means the pack's going to take a lot longer. It got really messy here. I ended up actually dying to it as well. But yeah, our coordinated AoE CC was very, very subpar here, which ended up in a lot of deaths because of that. I used my binding shot, I used my tar trap. I mean, tar trap doesn't really have that much value, but I'll do what I can to help the group. I'm guessing the DH tank wasn't talented into chains here because we didn't get any. We had a vortex at this very start of the pack, but that was with the binding shot. In pugs, you are going to overlap your AoE CC. Here, I tried to disengage through the dog. I mean, I should have just stunned it for sure, because then I would have lived. But I mean, I'm already ticking down to the bleed with pretty much all of my defensives already on cooldown, so I was probably toast regardless. Here, getting used to the play to profile here, I was looking at where the casts were going out. 2 of them were actually on me. So I tried to use my Feign Death, I was just too slow on the trigger. If you Feign Death towards the end of the cast, they don't realize that you're actually dead, or so to speak dead. So they still cast anyway, and I got one shot. Into the Gauntlet then, on a fortified week, we all know how this goes down. We definitely had a few deaths in here. I was also struggling, like I literally felt blind with this play to profile at this point. If there wasn't much stuff going on, then I could watch out for what casts were going where, what abilities were coming off for cooldown, etc. But then when there was a lot of mobs, I literally just felt completely blind. Like I may as well have had my monitor off. So here I end up ticking out to the Wave of Corruptions. I could have just used an Exil here to live probably. And then we move on to the last boss with around 3 minutes left, so definitely timeable. Panic mode sets in, but we do actually end up playing this this boss super cleanly. Turns out we didn't actually need Bloodlust. I thought we sent it at the end here, but we just killed it too quickly. So there we go, we timed the key. Look at that, starting a Vest video without a deplete. What on earth is going on here? We get 9 score out of that, taking us up to 3,264. Really nice key. You can expect some deaths throughout Throne. It is not an easy dungeon to say the least. And we won the overall as well. Poggers. Because we didn't start with a deplete, we're going to move on to a deplete. We jump ourselves into a 25 Dark Heart Thicket here. Very, very interesting start here. Now, if you'll look at to the top right, you'll see that the affixes are bolstering. So why on earth has the tank run and pulled the whole alleyway with a mob that has quite clearly more health than everything, so is going to die last and also does the most damage? Now that is a question for the man himself. I do not know what the tank was doing here, and that ended up in a wipe. Shock horror. We soldiered through though, not sure it was still timeable, but we'll try anyway. We jump down below to where the Night Claws are, and the Demon Hunter does Demon Hunter things. He dashes into the pack on the side, pulls 2 more Night Claws and also a Poisoner. Way too much damage going out in this pack on bolstering and on fortified alone. This is too much of a scary pull. You'd need Bloodlust or something to survive this for sure. And that is the key. Dunzo. GG. I mean, after that first pull, I didn't have high hopes for the rest of this key, so there is that. Next, we move on to a 25 Waycrest Manor. Still the same week here. On the first boss, I actually ended up focusing the wrong witch for a second, which is embarrassing. Again, that new plater profile messing with me. But not the end of the world. I only did it for about 10 seconds, and that explains why my DPS was so low on this fight. Copium. I don't know what it is about BM on this fight. I just feel like I don't do any damage. I don't know if the pets like interact weirdly with the witches because they're not all active. They're not all taking big damage. I'm not sure. But yeah, my damage always feels low on this boss. We did a humongous pull after the witches, and all of our kicks were on cooldown here, so I can't blame anybody, unfortunately. My Feign Death was off of cooldown, but again, there's a lot of mobs here. New Plater profile, like this is the first probably week that I'm using Plater. I mean, it would be first couple of days, honestly. So I feel completely blind here, like I may as well have no nameplates on my screen. At this point, now that I've played with my new Plater profile, shout out to Quasi, I would definitely be able to Feign Death or even Turtle here to live this Soul Bolt. Also, if I exiled just before it, then I probably do live as well because it only hit me for 850k. Move down to the courtyard. Really need to be on it with the kicks here. Kicking those infected thorns, they are going to deal a hell of a lot of damage. And we did a pretty good job. We had a few deaths here and there. Pretty rough with bolstering outside here as well. I ended up dying outside in this courtyard. I had my freezing trap off of cooldown, so if I was on it here, I could have placed it in front of me. The Gorger would have leaped into it, and then I wouldn't have received the bleed. This lightning felt like it went off so quickly as well. I don't know if that's just me being a bot, but it literally showed for like a second and then struck the ground, and that pretty much one-shot me. I got hit by something else here. I'm not really sure what else I got hit by. I think it was maybe just ticks to the bleed as well, but the main thing that killed me was standing in the lightning. The number one rule of World of Warcraft, don't stand in the swirlies, and I did exactly that. I did a little bit of trolling here later in the key. At the start of the dungeon, the tank called for Bloodlust on the trash before the second boss, which is something you do not want to do. Maybe now that the Goliath has been nerfed, but this was pre-nerf. I saw a lot of mobs on my screen here, so yeah, I kind of trolled and sent Bloodlust here. Turns out they were all maggots, but you know, I'm blind with my new player profile, so I sent Bloodlust. It all died pretty quickly here, but I just did what the tank asked for, okay? I mean, I definitely should have used my own brain and not sent that there, but yeah, I just thought there was a lot of mobs there, and it turned out that they were all maggots. I mean, honestly, maggots are the scariest thing in here, so maybe it was worth. Then the infamous Demon Hunter episode in this dungeon. They run into Raoul's room to pull the trash in there. They either sigil a flame or throw glaive the boss, and then he just consumes us all until we die. We still give the Soulbound Goliath a whirl, but at this point, I think the key is probably dead, although Waycrest is kind of a free timer, so... But yeah, I died to the Soul Thorns again. I exiled here through the fire just before the Soul Thorns. Don't know if this could maybe be a tank issue for clearing his stacks just before the Soul Thorns. It feels like some tanks really don't respect the Soul Thorns timer. But also, I could have definitely been closer to melee. Not saying that that was the reason I died, because I pretty much was near melee. I could have popped a pre-defensive here as well, but then if it's not me, I've wasted a defensive. Same old story with this boss. I hate it. I'm dead for the rest of the fight. That means the next Soul Thorns doesn't get killed, and that is GG. We're on to a weekly reset then. This week we have Tyrannical, Incorporeal, and also Spiteful. So a pretty nice pushing week all in all, to be fair. And we get straight into it with a 26 Galacrons full. Tank pulled these first packs very weirdly. He pulled everything up the top, which is exactly what you should do. And then he kind of ran down the stairs a bit, double backed on himself. I don't know if he was just trying to claim aggro. And then he ran back down the stairs to pull the pack at the bottom too. Even though we'd all popped all of our cooldowns already, we'd popped Bloodlust and everything. I can literally hear myself here as well saying, I literally can't see anything. I can't even see who I'm targeting. This player's profile, I hate it. Get me out, basically. We do end up chatting out the pool though, and then we take the last two Rippers when they're a bit lower onto Chronicar and start off Chronicar. Moved on to the Manifested Timeways then. It is a tyrannical week, so you know how this goes. But this time, it is me that trolled it. So me and Seb actually end up both getting the debuff here, and we both move in to the accelerated time zone. I realize that Seb is more central, so he's probably going to get the dispel first. This means I want to be back in the darker zone to take less damage. But because I'm in the light zone, I do end up taking a little bit of just natural ticking damage anyway. Then Seb gets the spell, which almost one-shots me. I definitely should have used the defensive here, but we did have Zephyr, so I thought that might save me. I don't know if that actually saves us from this damage. I don't know if it's classed as AoE. I guess it would be. So I literally go to 1% from that and then die, which then sets off my second dispel, which then kills Seb. Then we run it back again, as you always do in this dungeon. And at this point, we kind of realized that maybe the Mistweaver was the problem, because they were not dispelling. It took him a massively long time to dispel himself here. I don't know if he was just trying to prio him and couldn't catch up with a zone. I'm not sure. But because he dispelled himself so late, all of us were low from his trigger. And then the DHs got dispelled because he revivaled, which I don't know if he realized that would have happened. He was probably just panicking and trying to heal us all up. So that went through all of us again and instantly one-shot us. I even managed to get off my exhilaration here in between, but that was not enough to save me. Me and Seb ended up dying. Shock, the two squishy classes end up dying here. And then obviously that is a wipe, and that is the key. So yeah, on the first one, probably could have chalked that down to my fault. I should have survival of the fittest. I'd probably end up living there. But on the second one, the monk took forever to dispel himself and then revivaled, which actually dispelled the other debuff that was already out when we were all low. And yeah, that ended up killing us.
So we run it back on a 25 Galakrons full. This is where I really started to really hate this dungeon. The tank set up this first pool super nicely, just went straight down. I also didn't even press any buttons until they were all grouped together. I feigned after chrono melt as well as we were running down. Just some little tech for you hunters out there. An easy 2 million DPS for your boy here. We didn't chain this time, we just went into Chronocar after we killed all the trash. And for some reason, my pets got stuck outside of the instance this time, which is always a good feeling. I guess my pets were maybe killing Spiteful at the top or something, I'm not too sure. But yeah, they got stuck outside, so I had to dismiss and resummon those. Life of a BM Hunter, you bloody love it. Just gonna skip to the time waves again, because that is where this key is inevitably going to deplete. First pull, before we even pulled it, my good friend Jev here, who we were in the key with, called in which order he should dispel. The healer completely ignored this and did the other way around, so we ended up wiping on the first pull here. He dispels Jev as Jev falls into the decaying time zone because he knows that I should be getting dispelled first from what he called before the fight. So the healer dies instantly there, and then we all tick out accordingly to the other chrono fade that's going to come off of me. But we did this tactically so that we could bloodlust the second pull for manifested time waves. But wait, Seb presses Bloodlust when we still had like 0.00001 second left on sated. So we actually ended up munching the Bloodlust there. Sometimes that happens, it happens to the best of us, I've done it. On the second pull, me and Seb get the chrono faded here. I run in, I don't move, he dispels me. I popped the defensive just to be sure, but I didn't take any damage anyway because I didn't move. And the priest just leaves himself when around 40% HP. He's got his barrier up, he's got rapture up, he's got PS up, he's got 2 PSs up, he's got desperate prayer up. Sebs naturally ticks out and just one-shots the healer. The healer then proceeds to absolutely spam up the chat with capitals. I don't know what was going on in his brain here, but he ended up trying to flame us all for it being our fault. He then, after spamming in chat for 30 seconds, takes his combat res late, straight into a fragments of time, and instantly dies again. So he got embarrassed and left, bless him. I'd do the same if I ended up playing like that. Just kidding. After the key as well, he tried to flame or blame the key on Seb for lusting while we were still sated, and acted like that was the reason that the key depleted. So yeah, you just have these players, unfortunately. They just can't take any self-accountability, and that's why they never improve as players, because the first thing they do when they die is look to blame anybody else so that they don't have to take any responsibility for their death, and that's why they will never learn and never get better at the game. So yeah, having a lot of fun in Galakrons Fall actually. So why not do it again? Let's run it back on a 24 Galakrons Fall. Again, the tank kind of pulled the first packs weirdly. Like, he really staggered the pool upstairs and then even staggered and went into the pool downstairs. So really not sure what was going on with the tank's routes today, or on this day, sorry. Just before the time waits again, I was doing a little bit of trolling. My kicks and CC were not on point because of my player profile. I don't want to keep bringing it up, but I just want you guys to know why I was playing like more of a bot than I usually would. I know I am normally a bot, but this time we were like a recruit difficulty bot. Back to the time waste. On the second round, I think it was, of the chrono fades, I ended up having to use all of my defensives. I did end up getting struck by the chrono fade as I ticked into the light zone, so it was just extra damage there on my part. Definitely could have played that better, but I still lived. I just had to use Fortitude of the Best, Survival of the Fittest, and then I also popped Turtle as well because I panicked. We weren't too sure where to lust here, so we ended up settling on the fact that we would play it safe and lust on P3 of the Blight of Galakrond. Just make sure that we kill it. That's probably the only place that we're gonna see problems for the rest of the dungeon, and then we might still have it back for Iridicron at the end. On P2, with the overlap of the winds and also the corrosion orb being out, I should have seen Seb coming over to me here and press a defensive for it. I wasn't ready, so I just got one shot by the orb here. Definitely should have used a Survival of the Fittest here to reduce the incoming damage from that. We skipped the last packs before Iridicron with some invis pots. I used camouflage as a hunter here. And we started Iridicron with loads of time left. We almost got taken out by the Earth Surge, but we did manage to PUGG it. So unfortunately, because this key started out as a 26 Galakrons full into a 25 and now a 24, we finally timed it. It was wild how different the key felt. This was so much easier. We ended up getting 3 score out of this, which is kind of disappointing, but score gains are score gains, so you got to take them. Same stream then, we had one more big key in us after a interesting day of depletes. We got a 25 Everbloom, so we started off, we were going to skip the first mob with Imprison. Jev Bless him, somehow he managed to fail it. I don't know how, but it's all good. These mobs aren't a problem at all. We just skip them for convenience. Here, classic hunter brain. I've got my bow cocked, and ready to fire. I didn't even realize. So I ended up targeting Witherbark and pulled him. Luckily, everybody was inside the room. We were just waiting for the dread petals to come on over. I guess I was stuck in combat mode because of Spiteful, so yeah, I ended up shooting Witherbark. Again, we tried the skip here. If you guys watched last episode, if you haven't, I'll leave a link in the description so you guys can watch the whole series. But we tried to skip this abomination again. It never goes well in pugs. We always end up ninja pulling. So we ended up pulling the abomination and then we just slowly pulled it into the pack because I guess we were going to do that after the council anyway. Then on to the council boss. We do end up wiping here. The toxic bloom went off. If I was more aware of kicks here, then I could have saved my kick to kick the toxic bloom. I never look at kicks, so I don't know if that's something I need to improve at. We had the evoker on every single heal, so he's taking care of that. I mean, with a prop pally tank, you don't really expect to not be able to kick the most important ability on the mob you are currently fighting. But yeah, if I was more aware of the timers here, then I definitely should have saved my kick for the toxic bloom. I kicked the cast literally just before it, obviously thinking that somebody else was going to have their kick up for it. Just me being unaware there. We do run it back. I really don't think we would have had time to complete the key anyway, but the tank died on the second pull to the charge. I've seen a lot of tanks die to the noxious charge. I don't know whether it's a defensive issue or, I mean, I'm sure the charge definitely does hurt, but that is the key over. Same week, we jumped ourselves into a 24 Dark Heart Thicket. This is a super clean key with some big old pumpers in this group as well. I took every single leap on the first boss. As long as it's not too high of a key, I can do this pretty much with no problems. I'll exil one, I'll survival of the fittest, I'll turtle, and then just cycle those cooldowns as and when. The healer can also life cocoon me here. Just after the first boss, I ended up ninja pulling the blossoms here. Not the end of the world, but I definitely should have been more aware of my surroundings. I just got kind of pinched in by the mushrooms. Moving on to Oak Heart, I don't know if there's a way to bait the crushing grip onto you every single time, but if it is on you as a hunter or even a mage, you can actually disengage or blink out of the throw so that it doesn't actually damage you. It is kind of hard to pull off with a disengage. Obviously, blink is instant. You have to time it pretty much perfectly if you're a hunter with disengage, but it definitely is possible. We had a little bit of trolling on the last boss. All of my defensives are on cooldown here. I'm max HP. Nightmare Bolt goes on me. If I wasn't the Lust or if I resummoned my Fortitude of the Bear Pet, then I probably live this with that cooldown. But instead, as a hunter, I just get one shot by it. While I'm down, the DH also dies. I think he just stood in a swirly. I mean, I do not envy Demon Hunter players on this last boss having to zip-zap around while all these swirlies are literally everywhere. But I get back up, finish off the last boss, and we get 8 score out of this, taking us up to 3,275. The last key for this episode then, we have another Galakron's Fool. If you guys aren't sick of this dungeon by now, then I know there's definitely something wrong with you. We played it super clean up to the Time Waste boss. We only had 2 deaths, which is quite impressive on this high of a key, especially with the zone that we've just cleared. We ended up letting an Incorporeal go off as the debuffs were going out here. This just completely set off panic mode for everybody, mainly myself. So after that's already panicked me, I almost get one shot by the Rogue's Dispel going off. I thought the healer was going to dispel me first as the Rogue is the much tankier spec. So I used 2 defensives to make sure that I live here. I'm only focused on that at this point. I've forgotten by now that I have the debuff still on me. So then I let the debuff tick off of me in the slow zone. We also CR'd the Rogue straight into the ring as well, so he instantly died again. So that ends up in a wipe there. We tried to run it back, but the tank instantly dies to the boss as he jumps in. And that is a GG. That is unfortunately where we're going to have to leave it for this episode. If you guys are enjoying this series, then please feel free to drop a like down below. Also, leave a comment while you're down there if you are enjoying the series. I'd much appreciate it. Subscribe to your boy if you're new, and until next time, I'll catch you guys later.